You're listening to The Other Side of the Call, where first responders share the stories that shape them and the toll a career can take.
Resources are available in the show notes if you need support. If you find yourself in crisis, don't forget you can call 988. So welcome back to The Other Side of the Call, everyone. Today, we are joined by Mr. Don E. Devine, one of Canada's earliest paramedics who started his career in the 1970s. Over decades of frontline service, Don responded to countless emergencies, unfortunately including the 1996 Gackle family murders in Vernon, British Columbia. That event left deep scars in the first responder community and at his home. Like many who carried trauma silently for years, Don lived through the physical and the emotional toll of post-traumatic stress. But his story doesn't end there. Don went on to work for the union and later managed to reclaim balance in his life. He now speaks up and speaks out, advocating for mental health awareness and support for first responders across Canada. Welcome, Don. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Becca, Kathy Ann, how are you guys doing today?
Doing wonderful.
Wonderful.
Doing great.
Good.
Very excited for this conversation today.
Yeah. So, Don, maybe we'll start with, if you could tell us a little bit, way back in the day, what first drew you to become a paramedic?
Well, I was working in the forest industry in a sawmill. We all decided to take industrial first aid training so we could get 35 cents more an hour on our regular pay, but also because there was just so little first aid service available. Then I almost right away volunteered for the Midway ambulance service. And it was just a bunch of first aiders driving a panel van with the very basic first aid stuff.
Well, can you remember what kind of interventions you would have been able to perform back then? What, like if you weren't pushing drugs and doing leads or anything?
No drugs, no IV, nothing. Just basic skills of observation. CPR was a big one. The very basic life-saving treatments.
That's incredible. Just for those of you out there listening, just imagine being essentially curtailed in your ability to help the people in front of you. Like there's only so much equipment and so much you can do. You have the knowledge, but there's no tools. There's no protocols back then. Wow, that's got to be stressful in and of itself. Never mind the stuff you were seeing and what you were dealing with. Can you talk a little bit for us maybe about the culture back then in the 70s compared to later in your career? You guys were really starting this whole idea in Canada. I mean, there really wasn't a playbook when you were designing this. So talk to us about how that has changed over the years, over the decades.
Well, certainly it was understood there was very, very few other services that the province could use as a model. It was full speed ahead and don't wreck the ambulance and let's see what good comes of all kinds of protocols that were changing and flexible, and it was kind of a cowboy attitude.
Yeah,
just get her done. Unfortunately, that is a hard emotional scarring that is difficult to deal with because there was a lot of feeling of guilt. If you were the junior guy, you got all the dirty jobs. Then if something went wrong, you were blamed. Everything was an investigation for a while.
Oh, dear.
The culture was let's grow fast.
How do you think they've improved that now? Do you think better supports for those new guys coming in that are still getting the dirty jobs or whatever?
We went from 0 to 800 full-time employees, big province to cover.
Huge.
And they were covered by part-time employees mostly, and some a few fire departments. Again, everybody had basic life support. We didn't even have a licensing board then.
It's like cowboys, really.
It was done through collective bargaining.
Wow.
How the ambulance worked was truly worked out between the employees union, CUPE, and the employer, the Emergency Health Service Commission. We didn't have a budget.
No budget. No plans. No.
If you got to spend a few bucks, then we'll get it to you.
Wow. Boy, that's one thing that's certainly changed. It's very bureaucratic now. There's a lot of form signing and multiple signatures.
Today is much more organized, much more involving, and is such a huge demand put upon the young people that are coming in. Mm-hmm. You got to come in with training now. Before, they trained us as we went along. Yeah. Now you got to come with most of your training.
Is it the same across Canada then for medics? You start as a BLS or PCP and you do extra courses to get ACP later?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and it's supposed to be standardized across Canada. Mm-hmm. There's that reciprocity. So if you do the work in New Brunswick, then that's recognized in British Columbia.
That's good.
You may have to do a test. I can't say exactly how it works. You may have to prove your proficiency.
Yeah, you probably have to go on a preceptor, couple of rides or something to demonstrate.
There's all kinds of that safety stuff to go through.
Can you describe those three acronyms that you just said?
Well, the basic life support is the BLS, and we had advanced care life support, which was the people who had ECG and they started IVs for fluid loss and then drug administration for cardiac or respiratory issues. And now they call them PCP.
Primary care. Primary care paramedic.
That's pretty much all across Canada, right?
So Kathy Ann, the BLS and PCP are interchangeable. That's basic life support or primary care paramedic, and each province, like, it sort of varies a little bit across Canada, but those two, they mean the same thing. You're not pushing drugs, you are first aid, you are in the ambulance, but you probably have a senior ACP medic with you or there's one that's nearby that's coming. If you don't have an ACP crew available, let's say I'm going back to my dispatching days, but if somebody called and they were having a code 4 or a red alert call, like this lights and sirens, life-threatening situation, and I don't have an advanced care paramedic to send, I'll send the closest PCP or BLS truck and they can get started while the ACP medic is coming with the medication and the drugs and all the things. So they're still doing a hugely critical job. They just don't have as much power as somebody who's making other decisions.
Right. They have always sent PCP with the ACPs. It's just a standard practice to send 2 ambulances.
And that would change a little bit from province to province and service to service. You know, when I was dispatching here in Ontario, I did it in the Greater Toronto area, and they had roaming ACP solo medics. So they would just have an SUV. They can't transport people, but they can drive there really fast, and they have the equipment on the truck to intervene.
We now have that in British Columbia as well. Okay. And it's starting to expand. So
it's really helpful because it gets somebody with the patient contact and resolving the situation, treating or medicating the situation or staunching the bleeding or whatever's going on. They can at least get it started, and it helps with patient outcome.
I believe they're even talking today about having physicians on cars, much like the London ambulance service.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, I don't know how we would afford it because our healthcare system is already a nightmare, as we all know. Yeah. But if anyone out there is interested and you haven't seen it, this is a little bit old. I'm dating myself here, but there is a brilliant production. You'll have to look for it online because it's not on Netflix anymore. It's called The Horn, HORN. And it's about a series that is filmed with the flight medics at the Matterhorn, bridging Switzerland and Italy. So they do all of the rescues on the mountains for a skier that broke his leg, or someone fell down a crevasse, or something, had a heart attack on the mountain. A skier that got, or a climber maybe that got stuck overnight. They do all those rescues. And they have the equivalent of a CCP paramedic, that's critical care paramedic, and a doctor, and a guide, and a pilot. So 4 expert people show up on the side of the mountain. You literally have a neurologist on the side of the mountain treating your head injury. So it's absolutely incredible. Yeah. So Don, I think I know the answer to this question. Probably I can assume it, but can you talk about what, if any, preparation there was back then for the psychological toll of this job? Did anybody pull you aside and talk to you about what you might see, how you might deal with it, what they expected you to do with all of this trauma?
Well, certainly in the beginning, the old guys, I say that kindly, would tell the new guys they don't know anything and they're going to learn a lot. And if you're going to cry, you should go look for another job. Well, that
was the culture, though, right? Like that was the norm.
They thought that's what you had to be. They're just trying to toughen you up because they knew what's coming.
Yeah. Did they never talk to you about it, like some of the senior guys?
No. It was a hidden danger that nobody knew the answers to, so they just didn't talk about it.
Right, because back then we didn't have terminology to understand what it is that you guys were experiencing.
That's right. We had some old soldiers that knew exactly what we were going through.
Yeah, those guys would have been...
Not that we were soldiers. We didn't have to pack guns around and do that kind of stuff, but they were familiar with exactly how unstable it is psychologically to do this work. You were there because you wanted to be, not because it was good money.
That's interesting. So what I don't need specific numbers, of course, but what was sort of the salary structure like in the 70s compared to like a 9-to-5 job?
The salary?
Yeah. Could you afford your cost of living? I mean, like right now, for example, in Alberta, they're about to go on strike, right?
Well, when I came into the service, I lost about 50% of my income value from the forest industry to the paramedic industry.
That's a big cut.
About half the pay.
Wow. And what made that attractive? Just because you wanted to be around the adrenaline?
Got paid for doing this.
Oh, okay.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I started out as a challenge to myself.
Okay.
Could I do it? And I knew instantly that if I could survive it, I would thoroughly enjoy doing it. And I wasn't wrong.
So it was a motivating factor for you, was the fact that you knew, despite all the possible hidden dangers of the job, you were going to be doing something that you wanted to do, which was helping people.
Right.
And being a purpose in that way.
I knew that was the purpose. But my forest industry job was a place I hated to be because of inept management. There I go, putting my union hat on again, eh? And I was even a grievance officer back then. So I understood here we are with a brand new service that nobody could tell you where it was going to end up. And it was exciting.
Question here. So you mentioned earlier that you had a great sense of guilt and brought in all these other people like the armed forces, the soldiers helping you out, and you know that there's hidden danger. So how did you deal with guilt, and where's this guilt coming from? Because you're out there serving people and you're doing it for the love of people by the sounds of things. It's definitely not the money. So,
well, we just collected everything and threw it into the bucket, the same bucket, place to hide, basically. And we didn't talk about it too much. Like you come home, what do? You want to tell your wife and children about this gory call you just had,
No.
or gory 4 calls you just had, or whatever, was not talked about.
And you just had to deal with it.
You had to swallow it and keep going.
Did you have any outlets back then, maybe even subconsciously, without realizing you were purging anything from your body? Or
I was kind of a young, naive person, so I knew wasn't understanding a lot of what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was proud that I could come out the other side and look forward to going to work tomorrow. You have to pigeonhole stuff. You can't help it. It's reviewed regularly. This call reminds me of this call, and that's how it goes. It's much like the old operators for the telephone service. The wires are going everywhere, and it's making connections. Many of us lived the same call over and over and over.
When did you first begin to notice signs of trauma in your life and in your body?
Probably after my tour as president. I certainly knew there was something out there. Okay. There was something waiting for me. I didn't know quite what it was.
Okay, we're going to get into the union stuff in a little bit. So that's interesting. Don and I talked about this a little bit before today too, but he functioned for a good couple of decades after the index trauma, let's say, and managed to get so much work done and work in so many different positions before, unfortunately, it caught up with him. And we are going to talk to him about that. But can we talk about any masking that you would have done? Like, what did it look like for you to look like you were okay? Even if under the surface you were struggling, you didn't want to let people know that. What were you doing outwardly that made people think everything was fine?
Well, that's when I got into self-medicating and drinking. It didn't help. I don't know why I continued doing it. It didn't really help. I just was unconscious for hours after. And
didn't have to think about it, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners who, walk this path can highly relate to self-medicating.
Oh, yeah.
And the job that it does. And I think we, in the therapeutic world, we often talk about how we can't carry shame or guilt about that because it was serving a purpose. It was helping you survive. It was the thing that was helping you cope, because either back then in the 70s and 80s, we didn't talk about mental health at all and what post-traumatic stress was, but also because there were no other things offered to any of them. And we still have that as a big struggle today in the culture of any first responding positions, where alcohol is a very common self-medicating tool that they use. For our listeners, I just want to share a little bit of hope for them that if this is something that they are dealing with, something that they're using to cope, that there are many avenues that are out there to help shift that. And all we need to do is help bring in some different things to replace it.
Different coping strategies.
Yeah. As we move through it. So thank you for being honest about that part of your journey, because I think a lot of people carry shame about that being the thing that they use to cope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rebecca, I certainly realized as an executive union officer how many of us were actually sick. I started to get education and some training about post-traumatic stress, how it was affecting all these paramedic employees and no one was helping.
What year was that around, Don?
91, 93.
So not only were you like on the grassroots early days of the paramedic, you were at the front lines of the mental health fight too.
Oh, absolutely. That was something we took to bargaining every time for quite a few contracts, and the employer just refused to talk about it.
Now, I know that you had a really great support system at home because we talked about that once on Zoom, your lovely wife. Can you tell us a little bit about how you two managed functioning together when you had all of that in your head? You didn't want to poison her. You didn't want to expose her to it, but it was part of what you were dealing with.
I'm sure I let it out and said things I shouldn't have, but hey, hindsight's 20/20, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dulcie and I we spent a lot of time apart because I worked downtown in Vancouver and she lived in the interior, and I'd go back and forth every 4 days, basically. I guess I talked some about some of the calls, and she certainly heard half of the telephone conversations I was having.
That's true.
Because when I was on days off, I'd get phone calls, union stuff.
Right.
But she would always ask. She would question me. Are you sure? Do you want to think about this? Or I would just say, you do it. You're strong enough. You go ahead and do it.
So Becca and I were talking earlier today before you joined us about how some of these relationships sort of balance out when one person's maybe not effectively dealing with trauma, not through any fault of their own. They just don't know yet. This was a long time ago. Becca, you wanted to talk to Don a little bit about that, I think.
Yeah, I think, given that you work in such a grand scope with this, you're in the union roles, you're in just peer support roles for a lot of these people. How do you see families and relationships being impacted by this profession?
Totally destroyed families. I've seen a lot of families break up because the paramedic can't handle their alter egos came out and to protect them and make them feel strong. And I recognized it. I didn't know what to do with it. And I was trying to get into a bargaining spot where they could get somebody that knew what they were doing to help us. I don't think I even thought of it as treat us. I knew what it was. Like you become part of that medical system quite quickly. Yeah, all your emerge staff and you guys, you're all the same. You all giggle at things you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But it's surviving. It's surviving.
Yeah.
Talk about anything other than the patient you just brought in.
I've known a lot of medics and, well, in my case, dispatchers. We all have a pretty dark sense of humor. And you need it.
It is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
And it is, I've had some belly laughs that have just lasted for days working in the ambulance service. Hopefully not at anybody's expense. But again, without recognizing it, that was a coping method.
100%. Yeah, you gotta deal with it. So we've talked about a couple of sort of key moments in your career that really changed the direction. And one of them was a line of duty death in 1995. If it's okay with you, can we talk a little bit about how that landed for the service? I mean, how did people generally deal with the fact that your service had lost people?
Well, that was our first line of duty lost. Everybody had been saying up until that time, oh man, I wonder when it's going to happen. We're becoming more adventurous in what kind of calls we were able to do. High risk. It was called high risk infant transport. I know it's high risk for the infant, but it was high risk for everybody flying around the province in weather that nobody else flew in. So we knew it was coming. And when it happened, it was like a punch in the stomach. It just pushed the air out of your body, and somebody had to stand up and say, "I'll do it." When it comes to dealing with the public about what happened and how it affected us, there I was in front of TV cameras, and I had a good union officer with me. By the name Elizabeth, who was a very powerful person and very supportive. And she was there with me. But I was the mouthpiece. And I used it. I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not. I used it in our arguments with our employer.
And you should. Don't apologize for that.
Yeah, yeah. I had to realize that the guys across the table knew nothing either.
Right.
Right. And just put the gloves down and let's just find an answer. It was a hard thing for them to do. that first line of duty, and then boom, the next one came, and then boom, the next one came, and then boom, all of a sudden we're going, wait a minute, that was a suicide. That wasn't a line of duty death, which it should be, but it wasn't, and that made us angry.
And it should. You're losing friends and colleagues, and it could happen to you. I mean, that's scary. That's confronting.
Easily.
You're dealing with the same thing those people were dealing with. And if it cracked other people, what happens if it cracks me?
And so that's probably when I really picked up on me and how I was feeling. It made me look at me as the example for stuff. Not only did we have to deal with our own trauma, now we had to deal with everybody's trauma,
right?
And bargaining it. So I kind of went, holy smokes, that's me. That's who I am.
Right.
And later on, it even got worse. I was a grumpy, miserable, violent person. I didn't want to be.
Right.
And my family stuck with me, said there's change possible, and away we went.
You seem to have a very like ahead of your time family. I think it sounds like you guys were ahead of the curve. You're sort of starting this whole idea of mental health concern and therapy and support for first responders. And meanwhile, your family is doing something truly incredible without having all the tools we have today. They knew you needed them to stand by you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of our first responders face these very real things you've just described, right? The isolation in the job, the isolation from not realizing that many of you are actually feeling the same things. You know, you described how the first suicide that you ever experienced is what made you go, oh, so it's not that there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with the system that's causing this stuff inside of me. And I need to do something about this because I don't like the way I am presenting myself in my real, right? I don't like being angry. I don't like the way I'm treating my family. I don't like have these violent tendencies. And we have something that we talk about moral injury, right? In how you have these values and these morals about who you are at the core of a person. And for our listeners who can't see Don, he looks like the most gentle, loving, kind person.
Looks like your grandpa, like Santa.
Yeah, like I could never picture you being somebody who was violent, but because that wasn't who you were. It was the trauma talking. It was the trauma that brought those other parts out and the moral injury, because they're inside of you. You know you're a good person who's doing this job because you want to help people, but then it's bringing out this side of you that is the opposite of being a good, I'm putting in air quotes, good person, right? And the only people who really get to see that are the people who are closest to you, because when you walk out the door to go to your job, that mask goes on and you are there to serve the public and you're not going to show them that side of you. And so I do have to, agree with what Amelia was saying in regards to your family being able to navigate that with you and understand that you needed that support with maybe those conversations about boundaries and get some help or else, right?
It wasn't only my own trauma and fears and experience. You had to live your friends' trauma as well.
Right.
Because you'd sit together getting smashed, and all of a sudden his powerful anger latches onto yours, and look out, right? So having that happen more and more, in 99, I left the ambulance service. And I left because I was lonely. I was lonely in there. I couldn't get the success that I knew we needed in my union position, and I didn't want any more loads to carry. So I left. I went to CUPE as a national servicing representative, I went bargaining and arbitrations and labor boards and organizing new members. It took my mind away from trauma, but it still had heavy pressures and responsibilities. And I started like I had agoraphobia, I'm sure. I did not want to leave my house. I more than likely was avoid getting into trouble. I wanted away. We lived in the city and I needed out. So we came back to the interior, to peace and quiet.
Now, it's interesting you talk about going over to CUPE. You went to literally the opposite side of the table of where you had been before.
Not opposite.
Well, no, you were representing what they needed in the service, but they had previously been sort of arguing with you and you're trying to tell them what they need. And now it's actually really rewarding and lovely to hear that they took that on and said, you know, who we need to hire for this is Don, because he knows what they need.
In part, it's that experience. It was a better paying job with better benefits.
There you go.
It was a really easy decision to go. But 12 years after the Gekal murders, I volcanoed. The top of my mountain blew off, and I needed help.
So that takes us to around 2008. What position were you in there?
I was a national servicing representative.
Okay.
It was I just needed help, and I knew why, but I didn't think it was my job I was doing then. So I had nothing to do with the paramedics. So I went to my employer and said, I'm off sick. I need a break and I need to go find help. And CUPE, bless their union soul, said, we don't have anybody to go to.
And this is in 2008, not that long ago, folks.
Yeah. Go find what you need. Now, this was more like 2000. Go find what you need. And if you're happy, we will make sure that person's available for all our paramedics.
There you are again, right on the front lines of starting mental health support for your colleagues. Wow.
Yeah, but I also said, I don't want to be the one responsible today for that. I'm busted. So I'm very fortunate that I got the right person with the right training that was able to just knew me instantly.
What did that look like when you're like 2010 here? You're looking for a trauma-informed therapist who knows what it's like to work with and deal with first responders when that hole didn't exist yet. So how did you find this incredible therapist?
Well, it didn't exist in the policing service. The RCMP had a registered psychologist that dealt with PTSD, and that's who I went to.
Okay, so there was somebody that had sort of decided.
And she kind of said, aha, the paramedics have arrived.
Oh, she'd been waiting for you.
Yeah, been waiting for you.
Oh, that's really sad.
And she was just a tiny person and pushed me around like I needed to get pushed around at first and showed me how sick I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then said, now I know ways to help you, different ways to help you. And we'll just start shopping.
Oh.
Right? I've seen her every day for a while. And then once a week and, then once a month. And it took a whole year of her to get me to a place where I could say, I'm fine, Jack. And I left the city. Mm-hmm. That was 15. And we came here to the peace and quiet. And I had nothing to do with the union or as a paramedic, except I started working in the volunteer group as a first responder. I have all this experience and knowledge. I can take it, what I was thinking, but they weren't paramedics. So they already had their own ideas and their own safety sets. I got to really, really, really find a healthy spot.
I'm really glad to hear that.
I also like that you showcase a brilliant way for someone to start to look for the right person to help them, which was you went to a source that was similar to your job or similar to something you had been experiencing, and you used someone that was already connected with that group. Because I do think that one of the things we see and hear a lot out in the mental health advocacy world for first responders is one of the barriers is not knowing how to find the right person.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to tell their story over and over. They want to find somebody where they can just sit down in the chair and that person already knows everything they've experienced neurologically and psychologically and physiologically, and let's just get to it, right?
Yeah.
I've already been living with all of this trauma inside my head. I don't need to relive it with you in conversation. I need to know that you know what's going on, that you have solutions, and that we're going to do this work together to mend my internal.
Yeah, well, she certainly said that she was going to pull out some of my anger and have it on full display for me.
And what did that look like? What was
an extra hour to cool down.
Yeah. So how did she pull that out of you? Do you remember?
She had me go through all some of the calls that bothered me, some of the political issues that bothered me. Like there was no exclusions for her.
Okay. Right. So you guys would talk about it, bring it up.
You off. It's something she's going to deal with.
And then did she give you a tool to express that anger?
Absolutely.
What was it?
Well, she gave me several.
Okay.
And then we landed upon EMDR and rapid eye movements.
Okay.
And I started going, you know what? I recognize now me actually doing this on calls when I reached this high stress level. I started bing, and my head would say, okay, this is your visual you have to deal with now, not that. It was kind of a miracle thing for me.
I got to interject here, guys. This is, if you're not counting with me, that's the 4th time in this interview Don has been at the front line of emerging treatment, therapy, or protocol. Yeah. Because EMDR is very recently sort of been touted as the gold standard for CPTSD. Yeah. And here's Don doing it more than 10 years ago. Just incredible.
Well, I will tell you the biggest piece of not heal, but getting out of the environment that was a huge antagonistic, and like go for a drive. I was ready to push people off the road if they pissed me off. Where did this nice, gentle guy go to?
Yeah.
Where did he go to? He's out there somewhere that I used to be. And by the way, I play Santa Claus. I used to for the kids in the parade here.
Yeah, we wondered.
We knew it.
I didn't want to say that you looked like Santa Claus because I didn't know how you feel about that, but I totally thought that. The second I saw your photo, I was like, he's Santa Claus. I love this.
I discovered that I could put a lot of my old energy into being Santa, to being a good thing. The kids, they're just true believers, eh?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it was so much fun.
How many years did you do that for?
I didn't do it last year, which was the first year in 5 or 6 years. And even through the COVID time, I still played Santa Claus. I wore a mask.
You wore a mask, Santa with a mask.
Teach kids how to wear masks, and this is why you don't spit on your good friend and stuff like that.
Yeah,
the kids, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then I found out that when I put this invisible to me, but not to them, body armor on of this red and white suit and black boots, and a big sack of empty boxes and a couple of toys, man, they were believers.
Oh.
They would sing to me. I probably healed more there than anywhere.
Wow. That's beautiful.
After my psychologist.
So here you are showcasing another wonderful coping strategy, a life of purpose, having something that heals you that's outside of the job. You can still give back and help and bring smiles to people's faces, and that heals you in the interim of doing it.
So you asked me earlier, Amelia, when did I recognize?
Yeah.
I recognized in 94, and I did this.
Got a tattoo?
It's a tattoo, and it's a ship changing into a dragon, or a dragon changing into a ship.
Oh, okay.
Representing a peaceful, healthy, organized thing, and the dragon not.
The chaos.
The whole point is change is possible.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
And that's when I said, I'm done. But it took another 5 or 6 years for me to actually get the courage to go.
And unfortunately, it sounds like some of the worst calls were in that 5 or 6 years when you were already struggling.
Yeah, more calls.
More calls.
There was more calls, and there were terrible calls. I also put myself into situations that I knew my employer wouldn't want me to be in.
In danger, you mean?
Like that I knew myself were deadly dangerous, but there might be a kid to go help.
Right.
And that is going into a house where the shooter shot 8 people, and we didn't know where he was. And the police were running from room to room, and they said, get in there. So me and my partner jumped right in there, and I went searching, and he went treating until I got organized. And I looked in places I knew children hid, that I knew where someone with a gun could easily be. But I still opened doors and looked behind toilets and water tanks and under beds, and didn't find any more. I found a lot of destruction. It was, we got to the hospital with patients. We did 2 or 3 trips, and there were other ambulances too. But at the end, I just energy drop out of me and go into the ground.
That day, like while you were there?
Oh, yeah, at that event. And we were getting calls from CNN and on our cell phone, on our personal cell phones, because somebody had said on the air they were coming to the hospital code 3 with through and through bullet wounds to a child. As soon as you say that on the air, every news station in the country wants to talk to you.
Yeah, they weren't encrypted or anything back then.
They found out that where we were and what our phones were, and got us all really angry.
Asking you to talk about something that was really none of their business.
And then I got a phone call from the executive director saying, this is what I was talking about. He understood it, how the stress would be. But hey, he knows Don, and he knew that everything would be okay with this call because Don was on it.
No pressure.
Worst thing he could say to me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It wasn't my fault.
No, of course not. You came after to help, of course.
And to have him say he recognizes what's happening and not have a value for it for all his other employees really upset me.
Yeah, it would. You guys are a team, right? And you had somebody.
And I let him know later. He didn't like it.
Good for you, though. You stood up for yourself and your colleagues and your profession.
And we started to move forward with treatments and recognition and peer value. To have a peer, somebody with some training and survival instincts, let's say, are you guys okay? Are you okay? You know, like you can tell me, you know, I've lived it too, so tell me about it. We went peer counseling right quick, whether the employer wanted it or not.
He was making it happen.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that some of your colleagues, you guys went away for a weekend after that call to spend some time decompressing. Whose idea was that?
Sometime, I can't remember the time after, but I organized because I knew some of us were not moving progressively forward with dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
We're all tight. You said it. We're all family,
mm-hmm.
and so I said, well, let's all have a revisit. Let's see what's wrong. So we envisioned. We didn't know what we were going to see, so we all agreed to come to a bunch of us to come to a hotel out in the bush and Coyote Lodge, and we just bring a bottle of this and a bottle of that, and let's all sit down and tell one another what's wrong.
Wow.
And we had the kids were there, and it was one of the old family picnics, quite honestly. And then only 2 or 3 of us talked after that, and everybody else said they're so disgusted they wanted nothing to do with it anymore because the employer weren't helping them and they were helping us. And
politics.
Yeah, the employer wasn't helping us, not at all. It took 2 years before I talked to any kind of psychologist.
After that call?
After that call.
So just to put that in perspective for people out there listening who maybe aren't first responders, the protocol these days is you do a debrief, and it's usually done within 72 hours of a major incident. So the fact that Don and his partner and everyone else involved in that night waited years to even have a discussion about it is shocking.
We did. I knew the RCMP were having an open session. And I said, can we come? And they said, absolutely. So me and my partner and a couple others that were involved on that call went to a group debriefing.
But remember, everyone, this was the 90s, and it was the police.
And quite honestly, I was the only one that spoke there.
Oh, wow.
Because everybody else didn't want to talk about it. I knew I got to drag these guys out and we got to go find help. But the employer treated our part-time employees terribly, gave them nothing, absolutely nothing. No counseling, no time off work, all of that kind of stuff. So it was really a bad time. I had to move forward, so I did.
Are you still friends with some of the people you worked with back then?
I don't know where they Hardeep and Russ, who was my partner, and a few other paramedics that supported me in all my elections, and we're good buddies.
That's good.
But we don't have that call.
No, you don't share necessarily the same.
It's not the focus of our relation.
Right.
So, if I didn't want to talk about it, it was a good place to go.
That's true.
And they didn't ask about it if I didn't want to talk about it. Well, that was healthy.
That's the thing, right? I know when I was getting into this line of work, we got sort of cautioned. Don't meet a first responder and ask them, what's the worst thing you've ever heard or seen? That's sort of a natural question that a layperson has. Like, oh, your job's so exciting. Tell me something cool. And you think, you don't want to know. Like, trust me, you don't want to know. And I would always balance that with, the other people in my life didn't sign up for this career. They didn't pursue it. They didn't train for it. So they don't want to know what's going on. And if they did know, they probably wouldn't leave their home.
Well, a lot of them committed suicide too, because they were hidden.
Yeah, no help, no talking about it, no sharing, no support.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about a little bit in that after the sirens.
Oh, the CBC episode you were on. Yeah.
That I did. Yeah. And it was, and even there, I learned a lot more than I thought I knew.
Oh.
And every time I do that, I try and push that and learn onto somebody else.
Mm-hmm.